This week on a very special Another Thing, we talk about faith and its role in society as we remember the martyrs of Charleston, South Carolina. Dawn has a conversation with EMME, the most popular plus-size supermodel of all time. And my commentary this week is on what else? Donald Trump. I'm Larry Mendte. Welcome to Another Thing. Dylann Roof wanted to start a race war. That's what he wrote in his manifesto before he walked into the Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, and killed 9 men and women who had just gathered there to pray. But what happened in the wake of that shooting was nothing short of awe-inspiring. Hate was answered with forgiveness. No riots, not even hateful speech. Only the kind of love and forgiveness that is rooted in faith. That's our topic today. Faith and its role in society. We begin with Kolodziej. Ellen.
After the racial incidents in Ferguson and Long Island and then Baltimore, many people turned to the streets to riot. But after the recent horrific shootings in a church in South Carolina, so many people turned to their faith. And members of the interfaith group of Greater Philadelphia say they're not surprised one bit.
This is not the first time that somebody's gone into a place of worship to assassinate someone. And I think those who have gone into those houses of worship, the people have responded in the same way.
I think the religious community helps people get below the tension that is often on the surface and find a calming effect, a soothing effect, and to focus on what's really important so we can get to where we need to go.
Pastor Charles QUANN and Rabbi Gregory MARX are both members of the interfaith group. They believe many factors helped people remain calm and turn to religion, not violence, in the face of such evil. They say the peaceful response happened because the shootings took place in a church. The victims' families were so quick to forgive, and also that one man pulled the trigger, not the police.
One is much more terrifying than the other. When the police do something, when the government does something, as a Jew, when the Gestapo comes, there's a very different response than if it's just violence from individuals.
But I do believe that this has been a step in the right direction, that there's a glimmer of hope, even though the young man thought that it would create more hate, more anger, more divisiveness. It really has done the opposite.
So Rabbi MARX and Pastor QUANN both hope that the positives that came out of the Charleston shootings will serve as the standard whenever there's another shooting anywhere in this country. Reporting for Another Thing, I'm Kolodziej.
All right, thank you, Ellen. Now to talk more about faith and its impact on us all, especially in the wake of what happened in Charleston, South Carolina, is Pastor Ronald Slaughter from the St. James AME Church in Newark, New Jersey, and also in South Orange, New Jersey.
Yes,
Thank you, sir, so much for coming in today.
Thank you for the invitation.
I think we are all stunned.
Yes, sir.
We all sit in amazement, in awe of the people of the Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, and how they showed us to react to ugliness, how they showed us to react to the worst kind of violence possible. And even though we stand in awe of that, I'm not sure we understand it.
Yes, sir.
Do you?
Yes, I do understand it. Oftentimes in life, God uses what we refer to in the theological community as martyrs of the faith. And sometimes martyrs are used as a segue into something greater, as a segue into something that God is getting ready to release in this world. And we have seen it in the aftermath of Charleston. We've seen togetherness like never before. We have seen unity like never before. I often characterize the moment in Charleston as a dark time for the church. But instead of it being a dark time for the church is shining brightly because it is demonstrating and adhering to the principles of forgiveness which are outlined in Scripture. I think what we actually saw is sort of a replica of what Jesus did on the cross. When they were crucifying Jesus, he said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do."
Oh, it was amazingly Christ-like, but you can preach all you want.
Yes, sir.
And Pastor Pinckney can preach all he wants.
Yes, sir.
But when the message gets through,
yes, sir,
that's a miracle. That doesn't always happen. And we saw Look, I expected violence all day long.
That's correct. Everybody was expecting another Ferguson, possible another New York. People were expecting riots. People were expecting looting, like in Baltimore. The difference here that it happened in the church. I think the tone was set by the pastors and the clergy of that community when they assembled that community in prayer, rather than in violence, rather than in anger. They brought the community together in prayer, and I believe that seed that was planted also transferred into the peace that we were able to witness in Charleston, which is actually a miracle considering that the shooter, Dylan Roof himself, expected a war, a race war more specifically, after his heinous act in Mother Emanuel.
Sure, and if they would have gone ahead and done that, they would have given him exactly what he wanted.
Exactly.
And what they did instead is answered his hate with love, answered his darkness with light, which doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen in this world.
It's hard to practice what you preach. Mother Emanuel and those 9, especially their families, have put into practice what they have been reading all of their lives in the life of that church. And that is remarkable. It is a modern day miracle that no incidents of violence occurred after this heinous act by Dylan Roof. And I'm still in awe, and I am still captured to demonstrate forgiveness. I can understand 5 years from now, 10 years from now, but to demonstrate it 2 days after your loved one has been shot for no reason in church where they're studying the Bible and in prayer, that is remarkable. And those persons and those victims' families are to be commended for demonstrating remarkable faith in such a crisis.
I hope many good things happen to them, but I hope Time Magazine, they are the people of the year. They're the people of the decade.
Yes.
And they certainly
Yes.
should. They certainly deserve every accolade.
Yes.
Let's talk about what's happened since then.
Yes, sir.
Just before we started taping this show today, the Confederate flag came down over the State House in Charleston, South Carolina. To you, is the Confederate flag a symbol of racism?
Yes, it is. Its history is a history of racism. Its history is a history of violence. Its history is also a history of promoting slavery in this country. Even John Wesley, the founder of the Methodist Church, even stated that release everyone from their chains. Even after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation by President Abraham Lincoln, South Carolina still practiced slavery. And so the bringing down of that flag, as symbolic as it may be for those that support the flag, it is a very distraction. It is very distasteful, especially for people of African American descent, people of color. It shows the perpetuation of violence and slavery, and that it was permissible. Note that when Dylan Roof began the shootings at Mother Emanuel, he made the comments that blacks were taking over America and he had to stop it, and blacks were raping their women and he had to stop that as well. Slavery did all of that. So for him to bring that flag and to have it all over social media suggests to us that he adhered to what that flag demonstrated several years ago and even today in the life of African Americans. It was a horrible moment.
You do understand that some people don't feel that way.
Some people don't feel that way.
You can't tell what's in their hearts.
That's correct. That's correct. But we're hoping now that the bringing down of this flag, like the Charleston 9, has begun a healing process. America has a serious issue with racism, and hopefully now we can come to the table and talk seriously about racism, although I'm with my president who said that we've done enough talking, it's time for action. That's what Mother Emanuel demonstrated. It's time for action. It's enough talk now.
And that's where I think we as a nation are going to fall short. I know we talked about this a second ago, and
Yes,
you
sir.
disagree with me.
Yes, sir.
But I think that bringing down the Confederate flag, although necessary, especially over the state capitol in South Carolina, I agree with you, could just be a distraction, because they could be saying, okay, fix the problem. Guess what? We can move on to other things now.
I don't think so. I think it is a remarkable moment in the history of the United States of America, and especially for South Carolinians. Most persons made the same statement about the Civil Rights Act. Also the same statement about the Voters' Rights Act.
Wait a second, that had some meat.
Yeah.
That had some meat to it,
Yes.
and had some long-lasting effect. This doesn't.
I believe it does.
Bring it down, it's done.
No, we're seeing it now all across the South. We're seeing it in Georgia. We're seeing the governor in Alabama do the same thing. What divides us and is divisive such as a flag, it is time to bring it down so that the divide is no longer there, that we can come together at the table of brotherhood, as Dr. King spoke so eloquent about, that we can come together and not have these divisive signs that divide us on an everyday. If we are, in fact, all Americans, let's not be divided by flags.
Couldn't it divide us more? I mean, you've had the burning of 7 black churches. You have the Black Panthers coming to Charleston and saying, we still have to kill the masters.
Yes.
So you have elements on both sides,
yes, sir,
that are not they're entrenched.
And I think if we focus more on those elements, we will become distracted, but I don't believe we will focus on those elements. It is downright wrong to burn any house of God, to burn any church, and it has saddened and grieved me to see that is happening. I don't believe it's happening because of Charleston. I just believe it is happening because I think Christianity is under attack in the United States of America by more than just racist supremacist groups. I think it's being attacked even abroad by such organizations as ISIS and other. They're attacking not only black churches, but church in general.
Well, that is another topic, and that's something I'd love to talk to you about. Please come back. You were excellent.
Thank you so much.
I'd love to talk to you again, especially about the attack on Christianity, because I do think that is happening. That's another type of prejudice altogether.
Yes, sir.
When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation with more members of the faith community. That's when Another Thing continues.